Hi, this is Mansi from the One in Asankhya project. Today we have Arvind Sasikumar with us. He's currently working as a software development engineer at Microsoft Hyderabad. During his undergraduate studies at Manipal, he got the opportunity to intern at Deutsche Post Germany. He has also worked with multiple startups such as UnoTrack, Firexit Software, etc. In fact, he even founded one. Want to know how you can prepare yourself to be industry ready? Then this talk is surely for you. Hi Arvind, my first question to you is, along with your undergraduate courses, you have worked with over 8 startups and organizations, despite having an internship and a job at Microsoft. Why do you think such experiences are important?
Internships are like really critical, to enhance your learning experience, no matter what field of study you're in. So, if you think about it, the benefits of an internship is pretty obvious, right? I mean, at least for most people, when you're in a field of study, the end goal is you will be going and making products for the consumers, right? Uh, but what people often miss is that alongside the core product development itself, there's a lot of background processes that happen. And when you work with an organization, you actually get an understanding of how these background processes function. And you start realizing that these background processes in itself are sometimes even more important than the core product itself that you're trying to develop. So let me give you an example in terms of software development itself, since it's my domain. So when you join as a software development engineer in the industry for the first time, you will realize that you have a really hard time estimating how long it would take for you to create a functionality. So let's say you're in the organization and you have been given a task to add a particular functionality on an existing product that the organization has made. Now, as a fresher, what often happens is that you look at the functionality that you have to build, and say it's a really small add-on to the existing product, and you say that it's only going to take me a day. But by the time you're done, you will realize like you've taken a long time. You've taken like 2 weeks to complete this small task, and this is something that happens with all freshers in the industry. And the reason why you actually mess this up is because you are only thinking about the product in terms of the functionality itself, and not the other components that could be affected by the functionality that you're trying to implement. For instance, you do not think about how implementing your functionality is going to affect the dependencies that this product have. You don't think about have you taken care of the compliance and security issues. You don't think about if the code is robust and maintainable. You don't think about whether the documentation is in order. Does it have accessibility features? Is the user experience really good? And by the time you have actually checked all these boxes, it's taking you like several times over what you actually estimated in the beginning. And this really sets back the productivity of the entire team. So that's one of the reasons why internships are really helpful. Working with companies on internships really solidifies your understanding of these background processes that go around with the core development itself. And you'll never be able to efficiently contribute to an organization until you really understand these background tasks that go around product development. And every single internship I've done has helped me learn more about the industry than I began with. And it has really helped me contribute more and create a deeper impact for my organization. And then going for an internship, it's not just for employees, even for people who actually want to start their own business or their own organizations. It helps you get the understanding of how business works, and that's helpful in its own right. Once again, this is just an example of what internship do. It totally changes you in the terms of how you see yourself as a professional, and it leads to a lot of development on the personal side as well. To cut it short, internships make you industry ready and really help you tackle the challenges that come in your professional life more easily in the later stages.
Right. That makes sense. So moving on to the next question. You are an associate IT auditor for Deutsche Post Germany. Can you describe your role briefly? What drives you to experiment with diverse profiles in addition to being a software development engineer?
So this was more or less at the point where I'd already had a job from what's my dream company, of course, and I wanted to utilize the time for, let's say, two things. I mean, I had already worked with a lot of organizations on the software development side of it, and I wanted to try something different. Well, not really like completely different field as such, but something a little different. And I also wanted to work with an international team to know how the experience is like. So I managed to see an opportunity for me to become an IT auditor at Deutsche Post at Bonn, which is a headquarters. So it was a great deal. I had to apply for it. So just like you would apply for any other job, I went ahead and gave out my applications. We had our interview process, and I was given the opportunity. And as for what my job was, basically what IT auditors do, I mean, what any audits do is basically to ensure whatever is being done in the company is as per the company policies and the legal stuff that's associated with whatever you are making. So your job is to be a third party that kind of cross verifies everything that your organization has done and to ensure that everything is in order. And it has really helped me. This experience has really helped me even in my software development role, because you start to understand the things that you're missing as a software developer. You start thinking about your own product in a third person view. You start thinking about compliance and policy aspects, which are something software developers in a large sense often make mistakes on. And not just that, even if you have to one day start your own organization, or if you're in your own software development team, you'll definitely either be subject to audits, or if you're building one, you will definitely have to create an audit function for yourself. As for the reason why I like to experiment with profile, well, first of all, I like to have some change. It's always good to, there's never a lack of things that you want to do. Whenever if it was possible for me, I would like to keep changing my roles, but well, there are some restrictions, right? The IT auditor experience, it really augment my core profile, of being a software developer. And this experience has really helped me. And probably, if someone gets a chance like this, it's definitely going to help somewhere in your career.
Okay. As a full-time employee, which aspect of Microsoft do you admire?
Microsoft, it's an amazing place to work at. I mean, everyone knows that. I mean, the facility is world class. You have the work is amazing. I mean, you actually get work that you really want to do, and you're not waiting for Fridays to come up. The work culture is great. The people are amazing. You get amazing support. Any questions you have, you can just walk up to anyone and they will really help you. I mean, the entire structure, how Microsoft as a company is set up is probably the best in the world. I mean, if you ask me. But more than all this, what I really love is the fact that Microsoft really heavily invests in its employees, and they really care about you as an employee. They care about your professional and your career path, as in they do make sure that where you want to get to, like say 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line, they will really give you all the resources that you need to make sure that you can hit your goal. And organizations like these are the ones you should always like to associate with. So I would say this is possibly the best place I can land right now.
That's great.
Yes.
You have mentored several juniors in drafting impressive CVs. What are some of the common mistakes that juniors make while drafting the CVs for internship opportunities at corporate startups? What were your observations?
So CV is probably, like one of the most important documents you'll ever create in your life. It's sort of like an entry ticket, right, to joining an organization. So, I mean, I like to think of CVs this way. When you apply for a job and send out a CV for a particular job posting, there are hundreds or thousands of others who are doing the same, right? So what is it that makes the recruiter want to give their time of the day to your CV? I mean, what makes them look at your CV a second time, which really increases your chances of getting through? So your CV is extremely important in getting this first impression out to your recruiter. I mean, no matter how good you are, if your CV isn't just as amazing and your recruiter doesn't actually get the fact that you are as good as you are, any talent you have is pretty much a waste. So CV writing in itself is more or less an art form, and each time you write a CV, it gets better and better. And learning to write an amazing CV is a complete learning process in itself. But the short version of it is that your CV should ideally have something that makes it stand out from the other competitors are going to apply to the same position as you are. And what's even more important is that you have something in your CV that makes sure that your recruiter at least has a chance to go through it, and they have a chance to like it so much that they would actually want to go through it again. There was a study somewhere that your CVs are more likely to get successful if a recruiter takes a second read at it, and that's what you're trying to accomplish when you're writing a CV, that the recruiter does like it so much that they have a second go through. And once you have the CV correct, it actually increases your chance into getting into whatever organization you want, but a huge margin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So according to you, what made your CV stand out?
Making your CV stand out is mostly, if you ask me, about trying to understand the role that you're trying to apply to. So creating one single CV for getting into multiple organizations or multiple roles is an extremely bad idea. And the reason it's a bad idea is because your CV should not be a dumpster of everything that you know. What it should rather be is basically telling the organization that you wish to join that, okay, you want this and I have this, and this is the reason why I'm going to be great at your organization. And if you can present your CV in such a way, you have a very high chance of getting your CV selected. And that's basically the most important step to opening your doors to entering the organization. So what I like to do is I understand the role that I'm trying to apply to, and I tweak my CV in a way that the things that the organization is looking for is what's there, as it's given more visibility, let's say, to the recruiter. And so they have a much higher chance of like spotting it, because I mean, think about it, they have like thousands of CVs and they have to go through it pretty quickly in a short span of time, and you have to really take the effort to make it visible to them. And unless that visibility is there, no matter how much you put into your CV, it's more or less useless, because they are not even going to glance at it. So yeah, that's.
So the cluttering of the CV is the most common mistake you have.
Yes, because especially considering the fact that CVs do have a very limited space, right? Your CV is not going to be more than 2 pages, ideally 1 page, because the more pages you keep, the less likely the recruiter is going to look at it entirely. At least in the first read, most recruiters just glance through the first page of your CV, which means that where you put your information and how you present it to them is extremely important.
So 2-column format or 1 column? Which one do you think is better?
Well, as such, format-wise, personally, I think you should be able to individualize your own CVs. You should take your time to write it in a way that it stands out. There's a reason why defined formats for CVs have started to run out, because then you just have a pile of let's say 100 or 1,000 people who are just having the same set of format, and it's not good for the recruiter either. I mean, they're going to, you have to think about it from the recruiter standpoint, right? At the end of the day, they are the ones who is hiring you, and if they are looking at hundreds of CVs with the same exact format, their interest in wanting to read that one particular CV out of them is going to be really less. So your goal is to switch things out a bit, at the same time, I mean, when you're being experimental, it's really important to understand where's the line. Personally, this comes only from actually writing a lot of CVs, and with each attempt that you do, each time you apply with your CVs, you sort of understand, okay, this is probably what I did wrong. And it's also really important to actually get your CV reviewed by someone, just to get other people's thoughts and opinions. Not necessarily does it mean that you have to implement them, because they could be wrong as well. But when you hear it from the perspective of anyone else, your friends, your parents, whatever, but you get some kind of an input which you might not have thought of, and then you can use that to, sort of better your CV.
Okay. How did you secure 2 internships in Europe in your last semester of college? What should applicants keep in mind? Sorry. Okay.
Go ahead.
What should applicants keep in mind while availing international internship opportunities?
Well, I've had a lot of people who have asked me, like, okay, what's the process to get one? And my answer is the same. It's the same way as you would get any job or any internship in your own country. It's a pretty simple process. You look for an opening. Searching for an opening is the hard part, I understand, but you go through your contacts, you look online. There's a lot of ways you can find out what's open. And once you know what's available, you apply for it pretty much the same way that you would apply for any job. If it's like a really open posting, you go and you apply through the set selection process. If not, if there's an organization that you really like to work with, you try to identify the spots where you have to send your correspondence to, so they can know, okay, you're interested. So that may be the recruitment side of the business, and you try to get in touch with them. And it is a hard process. I will admit, it's not easy. You apply for a lot of them and you get into one. But it's the trying that matters. And if you do try to get into the organization, sooner or later you will get into some that you would like. So yeah, that's pretty much what I did. I spotted the openings that I really like. I reached out to them, tried to convince them that, okay, these are the reasons why you should have me as an intern. And yeah, it's success. I was successful. It's got a lot to do with how you can sell yourself. You are more or less the product here, right? And you have to go through, you have to take the pain to really sell yourself to the recruiters and make them aware that, okay, hiring you is a really good idea, and how they're going to benefit from hiring you, which is super important. And sometimes, going through agencies also help, because they might not be able to really help you secure the job, because at the end of the day, that's all on you. You have to be good enough and you have to be a perfect match. And so no agencies can just hand you out a job or an internship. But it does really ease the struggles that you have to go through, when you're applying for a job or an internship, especially when it's in a different continent.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically about finding a spot and convincing them that you're a perfect match.
Right. So for these particular internships, which website or portal did you use?
Well, at that point of time, I was associated with ISEC. So ISEC is an organization that does internships abroad. So the support that you get in terms of going with most organizations like these is the fact that since you get, the first door is open to you, right? Just think of it this way, that you're sending a CV to an organization, and the first part of shortlisting your CV out of those is done for you. But at the same time, they do have to pick your CV out. So you still have to give your CV out. You still have to give your interviews. Your CVs have to be selected. Your interviews have to be good. If you're going through technical rounds, your technical rounds have to be good. Only then are you going to get in. And often with international internships, these are sometimes tougher because of the added cost to the company to hire an international intern due to cultural reasons, due to diversity issues, and this all leads to a tougher selection process, definitely. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why going through an agency does help, because that first step is done for you.
Okay. Having given a substantial amount of interviews and failed in only one, what interview tips would you like to share with our viewers?
As for interviews, let's think about it this way. I remember a story here. I don't know if it's a nice share, but I remember some time ago, I was using Tinder for the first time, and and I did match with someone, and it was some time ago, and I had absolutely no idea how it worked, because I never went on an online dating app before. So as the friend, what's the best way to go about it? And she said that, okay, if she has matched with you, she probably already likes you, so don't sweat on it. And she was right. This is exactly what interviews are. If you're sitting there for the interview in the first place, that means the company already loves you. And if you don't believe me at that, just think about that recruitment is an act that's extremely expensive for a company. So each person they interview, it's this extremely substantial amount that they are paying to the recruiting segment of their company, and they are definitely not going to give you the time of the day if they didn't really want you to be a part of the team. And that is something you need to focus during your interview. You need to know that they want you, and the only thing that you have to do is to get them to understand that you are the perfect fit that they're looking for. And you also want to know that companies aren't looking for like what you call a perfect candidate as such, as in they don't want you to be great on paper. What they want more is that you are a fit for the company, and being a fit for a company is really different from being someone who can do the core functionalities of the job that you're trying to get into. So the way to go about doing interviews is understanding what the company is looking for, and to pitch yourself, to sell yourself, to tell them why you are the perfect person to be there, why you're better than someone else for that particular spot, and what makes you really stand out, and name some stuff and tell them some stuff which really gets a recruiter wanting to think that, oh man, I mean, if you don't have this guy, if you're going to lose a really potentially big asset. And the second thing which I would like to highlight is the fact that people do not prepare for interviews. I mean, what I mean by that is, of course, I mean, if let's say you're a software developer and you're preparing for an interview, the preparation more or less looks like going through questions, going through standard interview questions and answers. But the issue here is that while you know the questions and answers, you haven't really practiced it. I mean, unless you have actually stood in front of a mirror and you have actually heard yourself say what you're going to say in the interview, you are going to mess up the interview for sure. What people don't understand is that most of the interviews, especially with freshers when they're giving interviews for the first time, they end up blabbering throughout the interview. And what happens here is that whatever you're trying to convey doesn't really come across. And if you had thought about all these scenarios during your preparation phase, it would have got your point across much better. So my general way of preparing for interviews is at least a day or two before the interviews, I stop thinking about the technical stuff, because what you already know. I don't believe that there's anything that you can really learn in those 2 days which is going to substantially improve your success in the interview. But using those 2 days to really prepare yourself for the interview itself, not the technical side of things, but the selling yourself side of the interview really helps. So what you want to do is walk through potential questions that would arise, for two potential scenarios. And by this, I don't mean really drafting 100% perfect answers. That's a really bad idea, because once you draft proper answers, you tend to make mistakes because you try really hard to stay on track with the answers that you have written, which never goes in your favor. You are going to mess up. So what you want to do is sort of have some key points that you wanna like focus on during the interview, and think about multiple paths your interview could take, and some guidelines on what you want to how you want to proceed with the interview in case the interview branches to one of these paths. And lastly, people often think that they can go through an interview and take their chances on doing something weird, totally out of character. In a simple way, just say, try to trick the interviewer into getting something done. And this is an extremely bad idea, because whatever you think you know, the interviewer knows better. They are doing this full time. They have done thousands of people. They've interviewed thousands of people before you, and whatever you have tried to pull off, they have definitely seen it. So you want to be genuine. You want to stay who you are. And sell yourself as you would be as a later employee. You want to be the person you would be if you actually end up joining the company.
Okay. What differences and similarities did you observe between the work culture of small startups and huge corporates? Which one do you prefer?
Okay. I mean, there's a big difference, to be honest, and I don't necessarily like or dislike either one. There's times when I wish, I was working with a startup, and there's times when I wish I was working with a big corporation. Currently, the company I work for runs somewhere in between with respect to the culture. There's the good sides of both. But startups in general are, if you get into a good startup, that is, are more like a really tight knit community. In fact, people in a startup tend to be like extended families, which is an awesome thing because you get the support, you get a lot of help, you get connected with people at a more emotional level, let's say, which is great. But at the same time, you would also be committed more towards the work, as in your individual actions, whether it be successes or failures, would impact the company at a much larger scale than it would do a larger organization. And also, when you're developing products for startups, your goals are often very different than when you're developing for organization. I mean, with startups, you are looking at more towards stuff like resource utilization, fast turnover, and whereas with organizations, you're even more concerned with stuff like robustness, compliance. So yeah, this in turn leads to a change in the work culture itself. But yeah, to summarize, I mean, I like both environments. I mean, if it was possible, I would like to work in a corporation one day and start up the next. But everyone has a different taste for this, I guess.
Right. Moving on to the next question. The Manipal's Moviegoers Club is unique in its cause. As its president, what was your vision for the club?
Well, honestly, I've always wanted to become the president of some college club when I joined college the first time, and I love movies, and I saw that at some point, I think my second year, I saw that there was a defunct college club related to movies that no one was running. So yeah, I decided to navigate some minor college politics, let's say, and put myself right there at the top of the club. Got some people to help me run it, and it was pretty successful, I would say, considering that it was a movie club. I mean, there wasn't any other at the time, at least. And honestly, the vision, because the entire club came towards it in a really haphazard way, the vision was seen really differently by the various stakeholders in the club. So some wanted it to be a heart and like an art slugfest. Some wanted it to be, something that would teach people on the technical side of movie making. And I myself wanted to see it a club which is different from all the other clubs, in the sense that people could just walk in and just have fun, watch movies, and with nothing else. I mean, just a simple time, just a simple way to have fun, enjoy time with your friends. And yeah, with some negotiations and circumventing provisions and stuff, was somehow able to run it my way. We screened really amazing stuff. We used to take polls from people. We just ended up showing what people wanted to watch, and we would have really large audience to watch it, and people loved it. And right now it's become an even much stronger entity than where we left off, and they're doing really great.
Awesome. We'd like to call your Facebook wall a knowledge sharing pool of entertainment. You have shared so many personal experiences and opinions without any hesitation. Is there one such incident that you'd like to share with us?
Well, not sharing stuff without hesitation does have its own cons. But I use Facebook as a means to interacting with people. I don't get to meet in real life, and often with people who I never meet in real life. But it gives you this amazing platform to share your views and ideas and really understand what's going on around the world in other people. I mean, it for me personally, it's really important for people to be able to share their opinions or ideas about whatever stand you're trying to take, and have a really nice discourse on it with other people. So Facebook really serves that need for me, let's say. And as for incidents that you mentioned, I mean, there could be many, but the one thing that really stands out is the fact that I remember using Facebook for the first time, and as you said, I put a lot of opinions and stuff out there, and it doesn't come out really positively at all, at least especially in the beginning. I mean, I have had people who are like outright dismissive of stuff that I used to put there. And what you want to do is not look at stuff negatively. I took the situation, I tried to understand, okay, these are the pitfalls, this is what I want to keep. And at the same time, if you are focused on your goals and nothing's going to stop you from what you're wanting to do, if you're on the right track. And yeah, I mean, as of today, I mean, I love using Facebook, and I spend a lot of time on it, to be frank.
Okay. According to you, how can one prepare oneself to be industry ready?
So being industry ready is more of a mix of skill. And skill is, of course, extremely important, because if you don't have skill, whatever else you have is useless, because at the end of the day, you have to put your skill to use. And also, ownership and the leadership mindset and understanding of the business, as well as the product development process as a whole. Understanding this is really important to be extremely successful in the business. And that is one of the reasons why doing an internship is super critical, because it is one of the biggest ways to be industry ready. Other ways are developing industry related skills, which people ignore a lot. So let's say you're a software developer, you're only looking at the development side of it, but you might also want to develop skills based on the tools and processes that go along with the software development itself. So yeah, if anyone gets a chance to do an internship, one should do it, because it gives a chance to take a look at how the industry functions while still being in a relatively safe environment. Even if you mess up your internship, it's not going to hurt your career in the long term. But once you land that job, you have a lot more responsibility on your shoulders. So yeah, internships is still one of my biggest go-to for being industry ready.
Great. You've always been working in a fast-paced environment, which requires a culmination of intellectual curiosity and interpersonal skills. How do you deal with this stress?
So how I deal with the stress is by not having stress. And the reason I think about it is that I like to think that time management is super important. You need to have time to do whatever you want to do in both your personal as well as professional life. Otherwise, you are going to feel that stress. And how I generally do it is I do have goals set. And while I don't have a daily or even a weekly or even a monthly planning chart, I still know what I want to achieve in a long term. And what I do is I pick a goal, a really long term goal, and I try to break them down into pathways, different paths in which I can achieve this goal. And I try to make sure that I am in the right track as I go along with. And I deviate only as far as I'm sure that I'm still on the same path, I'm free to do anything else. So this really helps me keep myself on track, while at the same time really having as much fun as I want with my time. And another thing that I really use is what I like to call like microtransactions of time, which is probably a misnomer, but what I mean by that is I do anything to eliminate what is not of value of what I'm doing. Simple way to explain it is, remember how people, when they're studying, sometimes they just zone out and they're staring at the ceiling, and before they know it, you're like 15 minutes have passed and you have no idea how you even wasted this time. And what people fail to understand is this happens every single moment of your life, whatever you're doing, even if you're just walking down the street, even if you're having a cup of tea, this thing happens every time, anytime, all the time. And these are time which is lost, which are absolutely no value to you, because you don't even realize that this time has been spent. So if you are able to consciously cut back on this time, and the way this is interspersed between your own actual work, you'll realize that your productivity goes much higher and you have a lot of spare time on your hands to do what you actually want to do. And when I say what you want to do, it doesn't have to be something related to your professional life. It can be absolutely anything that you want to do. If you want to play a game, you can play a game. If you want to watch a movie, you can watch a movie. But to be sure that this is something that you want to do with this time, understanding this is super important. And this makes sure that you know where you're spending your time. And it helps you sort of keep a mental track of time that way. But doing this is sort of like a long-term process. You keep doing this, and it sort of comes to you naturally over a period of time.
Okay. You have founded a startup in the past. What challenges did you face?
Founding a startup is a whole other another ball game. There's so much you get to learn from it. You're probably gonna fail, and failure is a part of creating startup. The mistakes you make, the successes, everything teaches you, so much. Not only in terms of being a better professional, but also a better person. You get to make connections. You get to have a better rapport with people. You understand how to be a leader in a space. You get that owner mindset, and you also get a chance to work really close with really passionate people, and that's something that really drives you even when you're working for another organization itself. And whatever the way the startup is going to go, you will learn so much from it that you'll be definitely glad that you give it a shot in the first place.
Great. So it was like lovely interviewing you. We got to learn a lot about how to interview, how to draft our CVs, and really learn the difference between startup and corporate culture. Thank you so much for interviewing with us again. Okay, bye, Arvind.
Bye-bye.